we really want to know what it is we want to achieve. So we want to know what the benefits are of any different change. And we want to do the best we can. However, our resources are limited, so we can't do everything we want to do. And that means choices are going to be made. So what we're trying to do in this section of work is trying to work out, well, what is it that the young people and the other evidence that we've got to actually improve our outcomes, whatever our outcomes seem to be, that's mostly self-set by them, that we can achieve with the resources to the NHS. To do that, we sort of try to answer three broad questions. What are the young people's views about the care they receive? And this was part of the Q-SORT work, which Alan's already mentioned. How important are the different features of care that might be placed in a service? And that's addressed through the discrete choice experiment that Helen mentioned a few moments ago. And then, could we think about a new way of providing care that could be a good use of NHS resources? So I'm going to go through each one of those in turn. So the first one I think about was the young people's views about the care they received. And for that, we were using an approach called Q methodology. And this is an approach to help understand people's viewpoints about a particular topic. So what's important to them and what's not important to them. And what we do there is we develop a set of statements describing a service, describing the type of care they receive, and then we're asking the person to place those statements on a board, which you can see a representation there, which represents statements on one side, things that they really want, they really like, they're strongly in favour of, and things on the other side that they don't like, they don't agree with. By thinking about how people place their cards on the board, and analysing the information from several different people who've done that, we can start to understand how different people actually might have similar viewpoints. And we can group them together to identify if there are a set of distinct viewpoints that might exist. And this is the viewpoints that Alan suggested. I guess the first thing from the Q-SORT, though, we found is that there actually wasn't a single viewpoint. We'd probably expect that, but actually it's nice to get some other confirmation from another mechanism. We identify 4 different viewpoints, and these are, broadly speaking, ideas about how how young people might view services and the provision of transition services. They are not absolutely unique, they overlap, and though we didn't test this, I would strongly suspect that people will move between these viewpoints over time and over context. So what we have is these viewpoints of a laid-back approach where people are just quite happy with the way things are going, they're happy with the way the care is currently provided. They want help in making choices, but they also want to have a role in making decisions themselves. The anxious views, and they want to be led, they want to be guided. The autonomy seeking, they want to make choices themselves, and the socially orientated, which is Alan said, they want everybody to be involved. They want to come together and involved. All of those, except for perhaps the exception of the autonomy seeking, wanted the parents to remain involved in their care. And quite a strong viewpoint throughout. Second approach we thought about was how important are different features of care. So we have tried to think about how we might provide or define a transition service in terms of a set of features or characteristics. And then think about, well, what would happen if those characteristics varied? They were present, or they were absent, or they were present to different degrees. And we used a survey technique called the discrete choice experiment. And many of you probably will have experienced one of these in a marketing exercise, because they're very, very commonly done. They're almost exclusively done for any Google service. Pretty much in the world, they use these techniques to work out how best to organise that Google service. We use this particular approach to understand how important these different characteristics were to the young people themselves. And we did that by asking them a series of questions, which was part of the longitudinal study, thinking about asking them to make choices about different ways services might be organised. And from that, we could work out how a service, hopefully, could be best organised. What we found is having a service that has some of the features and proposed beneficial features would make it far more likely that a young person would maintain engagement with that service. Again, one size doesn't fit all. Ideally, the service should be flexible. There were differences between young men, young women, between the different conditions. Not large in total, but they were there. And also by age group, which is a rough proxy, because we had no other better proxy for developmentally appropriate. What was nice actually to find is that people liked the care that they received, regardless of where they received it. That those preferences for their care, their current care, was strongest in those that hadn't transferred to adult services. That for me indicates something that maybe adult services aren't quite right just yet. Obviously, in a recurring feature, this having clinics that welcome parental involvement was highly valued. Also important to the young people was that information was passed on to the right people, so that what they know about the condition, everybody, the care providers, understood what was being given, and that staff offered choices but allowed the young people to make decisions about their care. So it was a shared care element, and that perhaps changed over time between individuals how important that was, but it was a reoccurring feature. The young people valued seeing the same people at each clinic, but not necessarily having a key worker. And they liked the idea of having care that would just help them more than about a specific condition, but actually about more general things and issues about just coping, not with the clinical aspects of the condition, but living with a condition. The third part that we tried to think was to pull all the information from these first two elements, the longitudinal study, in fact all the other different parts of the study, as well as including an economic modelling exercise, so using the information that has been collected as part of the longitudinal study to look at value for money and start to make judgments about whether or not different ways of providing care might be value for money. And the way we did this is we actually just organised the information we got from the study in what's called a balance sheet. And all that really says is what are the pros and cons of making a change. And that just shows a crude schematic of what the balance sheet does. And this is the simplified version of the balance sheet as it shows. I'm not going to ask you to read those because actually they come back straight out into the implications that Alan had highlighted before. And these are the sort of the headline figure implications from the economics and drawing together the synthesis of the economic findings along with other aspects of the study. First and foremost, we wouldn't necessarily expect a service that had potentially beneficial features included in it to actually save money, both in the short term, so that's the 3 to 4 years that the longitudinal study was carried out, or the longer term, and that's up to about 10 to 15 years from sort of age 14. It might, however, maximise engagement with services, and that will potentially produce problems in the longer term, and that will have impacts both on the health and well-being of the individual, but also on the costs to the NHS in the longer term, because many of these things are chronic deteriorating conditions. Service with appropriate parental involvement, protocol for promotion for managing one's own health appear to represent good value for money, whereas a service involving a transition management for the clinical team or an age-banded clinic appeared to represent less value for money. Not that they were inappropriate, but that maybe actually if you had to do two things, it's not necessarily those two things. And those would be the key findings from the economics component.